My brother's wife said I was unwelcome in their home. 2 weeks later, he showed up crying at mine because she'd kicked him out. Mom asked if he could stay. I said no. I'm Daniel, 32 years old, male, and I can still feel the sting of her words like a slap. My brother's wife, Alyssa, 30 years old, female, looked me dead in the eyes in her spotless suburban kitchen and told me I wasn't welcome in their home anymore. Not, maybe now isn't a good time, or we'll talk later. Straight up, you are not welcome here. I didn't even do anything that day. My brother Mark, 34 years old, male, had invited me over to watch the game, grab a few beers. We hadn't spent real time together in months. He texted me, "Swing by, dude," like it was the old days, when we'd kill an afternoon yelling at the TV and throwing chips at each other. I missed that. I missed him. But when I walked in, Alyssa was already storming around like I'd tracked mud on her white carpets just by existing. She's one of those people who makes you feel like a stain on her perfect little life. Always has been. Alyssa and I never clicked, but I tolerated her for my brother's sake. She, apparently, stopped tolerating me. "You always bring drama," she hissed, arms crossed, blocking me from even setting my keys on the counter. "I told Mark I don't want you around. This is our home, our family, not yours." And Mark, God, he just stood there, beer half open, frozen, like he was too scared to contradict her. Didn't defend me, didn't defend himself. Just stared at the floor while she shredded me. I laughed because it hurt too much not to. Drama? Alyssa, the only thing I brought was six-pack of Coors. Unless that's contraband now? She didn't even blink. Leave. Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. And that cut deeper than her venom ever could. He was my big brother, the one who used to shield me when Dad yelled, who bought me my first car with money he didn't have, who was the safe place when our family fell apart. And now? He let his wife tell me I was unwanted. I walked out that night with a pit in my stomach and this bitter thought chewing me alive. Fine. If they didn't want me, they wouldn't have me. But 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. And there was Mark, crying. Alyssa had kicked him out. And the first thing Mom asked me after hearing about it, "Can your brother stay with you?" I looked right at her and said, "No." Because this time I wasn't going to be the one they sacrificed. When I told Mom no, her face scrunched up like I'd slapped her across the table. "Daniel, he's your brother. He has nowhere else to go." I could feel the guilt trip loading up like she was cocking a gun. Mom's good at that. Guilt. She's been doing it since we were kids. But I held my ground. "He had somewhere to go, Mom," I said flatly. "He had a home. He just let Alyssa burn it down." The truth is, this wasn't the first time Alyssa had pulled this crap. I just hadn't realized how deep her claws went until now. She always needed control. She'd rearrange family plans without asking. She'd forget to tell me about birthdays. And when Dad passed, she all but hijacked the funeral to make it about her grief. Not Mark's, not mine. Hers. And Mark? He folded every time, like a cheap card table. Standing there at my doorstep that night, he looked so small. His hoodie was wrinkled, his hair unwashed. My big brother, the one who used to sneak me into R-rated movies and shove pizza at me after breakups, was reduced to this shell because Alyssa decided he wasn't useful anymore. "Please, man," he whispered. His voice cracked, and I swear my chest ached hearing it. Just for a few nights. I wanted to let him in. God, I did. But then I remembered that kitchen scene. Him frozen, mute, while Alyssa spat on me in my own brother's house. He hadn't said one word in my defense. Not a single stop, not a "don't talk to him like that." Just silence. So I shook my head. "You chose her over me. Now live with it." His face crumpled. "And Mom," she exploded. "You're cruel, heartless. What kind of man turns his back on family?" "The kind of man who's tired of being the backup plan, that's who." I shut the door before either of them could answer. And I stood there, back pressed against the wood, shaking. Not because I doubted myself, but because I could already feel the storm coming. Because Alyssa doesn't just let things go. She escalates. Always. And if she found out I'd refused him, she'd make it her personal mission to punish me for it. When I told Mom no, her face scrunched up like I'd slapped her across the table. Daniel, he's your brother. He has nowhere else to go. I could feel the guilt trip loading up like she was cocking a gun. Mom's good at that. Guilt. She's been doing it since we were kids. But I held my ground. He had somewhere to go, Mom, I said flatly. He had a home. He just let Alyssa burn it down. The truth is, this wasn't the first time Alyssa had pulled this crap. I just hadn't realized how deep her claws went until now. She always needed control. She'd rearrange family plans without asking. She'd forget to tell me about birthdays. And when Dad passed, she all but hijacked the funeral to make it about her grief. Not Mark's. Not mine. Hers. And Mark? He folded every time, like a cheap card table. Standing there at my doorstep that night, he looked so small. His hoodie was wrinkled, his hair unwashed. My big brother, the one who used to sneak me into R-rated movies and shove pizza at me after breakups, was reduced to this shell because Alyssa decided he wasn't useful anymore. "Please, man," he whispered. His voice cracked, and I swear my chest ached hearing it. Just for a few nights. I wanted to let him in. God, I did. But then I remembered that kitchen scene. Him, frozen, mute, while Alyssa spat on me in my own brother's house. He hadn't said one word in my defense. Not a single stop, not a don't talk to him like that. Just silence. So I shook my head. You chose her over me. Now live with it. His face crumpled. And Mom? She exploded. You're cruel, heartless. What kind of man turns his back on family? The kind of man who's tired of being the backup plan, that's who. I shut the door before either of them could answer. And I stood there, back pressed against the wood, shaking. Not because I doubted myself, but because I could already feel the storm coming. Because Alyssa doesn't just let things go. She escalates. Always. And if she found out I'd refused him, she'd make it her personal mission to punish me for it. The silence didn't last long. A couple of days after I turned Mark away, I started noticing weird little things. The first was my car. I came out of work to find a long scratch running the length of my driver's side door. Not a key mark. It was jagged, like someone had taken a ring or maybe a house key and dragged it the entire length. Nobody leaves a note for something like that. I knew. Then came the phone calls. Private numbers, always at night. I'd answer and hear nothing, just breathing. Once a low chuckle before the line clicked dead. Alyssa had always been petty, but this felt darker. Mark tried to text me in the middle of it. She's mad, man. She thinks you humiliated her. Humiliated her? She was the one who told me I wasn't welcome. She kicked him out. But somehow, in Alyssa's universe, everything circled back to me being the villain. And Mom didn't help. She called daily, sometimes twice, demanding I do the right thing and let Mark move in. He's your brother, Daniel. He's blood. Don't you care he's sleeping in his car? That part gutted me. Because, yeah, I cared. Mark had been crashing in the Walmart parking lot, showering at the gym. But every time I even thought about caving, I remembered his blank stare while Alyssa tore me down. My anger hardened into resolve. Things boiled over one Saturday morning. I walked outside to grab the paper, and there she was, Alyssa, standing in my driveway, arms crossed, her SUV idling at the curb like an escape vehicle. You're pathetic, she spat, before I even said a word. Turning your back on your own brother? What kind of man does that? I laughed, bitter and sharp. What kind of wife kicks her husband out and then blames his brother? That's when she lost it. She grabbed one of my potted plants, this heavy ceramic thing I'd had since college, and hurled it at the pavement. It shattered, dirt and shards flying everywhere. My neighbor across the street poked his head out, but Alyssa didn't care. You think you're safe because you hide in your little house? She screamed. I'll make sure everyone sees you for what you are, a selfish loser. Then she peeled off, tires screeching, leaving the broken pot like a warning. And I knew. It wasn't just about me anymore. Alyssa was waging war. The thing about Alyssa is, She doesn't fight fair. She doesn't just yell and walk away, she builds an audience. A week after the driveway stunt, I showed up to Mom's for Sunday dinner, mostly out of guilt. I figured maybe it was time to try again, extend some kind of olive branch. Worst mistake I could have made. The moment I walked in, I knew. Alyssa was there, smiling, like a cat that had just dropped a dead bird on the porch. Mark sat in the corner, pale and silent, while Mom fussed around the table pretending everything was normal. But Alyssa didn't wait for subtle. She raised her glass of wine and said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "To family, even when some people don't think it matters anymore." The room went dead quiet. My fork clinked against the plate because my hand was shaking so bad. I set it down. "Don't start, Alyssa." She leaned back, smirking. "Why not? Everyone should know." Daniel slammed the door in his own brother's face, left him to rot in a parking lot. That's who he really is. Mom gasped like it was new information, even though she'd been chewing me out for weeks. And then she piled on. "She's right, Daniel. Your father would be ashamed." That one landed like a punch to the gut. But before I could respond, Alyssa stood up, glass in hand, and launched into a performance that would have made Broadway proud. Tears welled in her eyes. Her voice broke. "I tried to make this family stronger. I tried to bring us together. But he," she jabbed her finger at me, "wants to tear it apart." Then she dropped her glass. On purpose. It shattered across the floor, wine splattering the rug like blood. Mom rushed to her side, like Alyssa was the victim, while Mark just sat there, staring at his hands like a kid caught between fighting parents. Something in me snapped. I shoved back from the table so hard my chair toppled. "You don't get to rewrite this," I said, my voice shaking. "You told me I wasn't welcome. You kicked your own husband out. Don't you dare pretend I'm the villain here." The whole room froze. Alyssa's crocodile tears dried instantly. Her eyes narrowed into that look predators get when they lock onto prey. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't about family anymore. This was war. Update. Wow. I did not expect the flood of responses I got after posting. I thought maybe a handful of people would say, "Damn, that sucks." But no, y'all lit it up. Hundreds of comments, DMs, even a guy who messaged me, "Burn her house down." Relax. I'm not committing arson. Tempting, but no. First off, thank you. Seriously. Some of you told me flat out that I'm not heartless, that setting boundaries doesn't make me cruel. And I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until I was scrolling through at 2 a.m. A few people pointed out the obvious. Alyssa thrives on control. She couldn't stand that I said no, so now she's hell-bent on painting me as the villain. That hit me hard because, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. She's not satisfied with me out of the way. She wants to destroy me. And let me tell you, she's not slowing down. After that Sunday dinner fiasco where she shattered the wine glass like a stage actress, she's been on a tear. Yesterday, I came out to find my trash bins tipped over, garbage everywhere. Neighbor's security camera caught Alyssa doing it. 2 a.m., hoodie pulled up, manic little smile on her face like she was enjoying it. Mark? He's still MIA. Mom says he's back with Alyssa, working on things. Translation? She reeled him back in. I can't even bring myself to be mad at him anymore. He's broken. She's got him so twisted he can't see daylight. But here's the thing. I'm done being her punching bag. Reading all your comments, one stuck with me. Someone said, if she needs an audience, give her one, but make it a stage she can't control. And that got my brain spinning. Alyssa loves appearances, loves being the perfect wife, the queen of her curated life. She wants control? Fine. I'll show her what it feels like when the mask slips in front of everyone she's trying to impress. I've been quiet too long. I'm not going to lay it all out yet, but let's just say I've got an idea. And it involves using her own words, the venom she spews when she thinks nobody's listening, against her. For the first time in weeks, I'm not just surviving her chaos. I'm planning. And this time, it's my move. After that update, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. If Alyssa needed an audience, I was going to give her one. But it had to be on my terms. See? Alyssa loves to rant. She's poisoned with a glass of wine in her hand. Mean, sloppy, unfiltered. I'd seen her cut people down in private, then the next day post Instagram selfies with the same folks, hashtagged sponsor family goals. It was always about control. She decided who looked good, who looked bad. So I decided to flip the script. I went out and bought one of those cheap voice-activated recorders. Small, easy to hide. My plan was simple. Get Alyssa talking when she thought nobody important was around. And who better to bait her than me? It didn't take long. She showed up at my place again, pounding on the door like a cop raid. This time she brought props, an old shoebox of Mark's stuff. Tossed it at my feet like she was returning a dead pet. Trash, she sneered. Just like you. I kept my cool. Funny, you still circling back here for someone unwelcome. That set her off. 10 solid minutes of venom, her voice climbing higher with every insult. She called Mark weak, pathetic, said she should have left him years ago if it weren't for the money. She mocked Mom too, said she only kept Grace around. Yeah, Alyssa calls my mom by her first name, because every queen needs a loyal servant. And then the kicker. She leaned in close, wine breath hot on my face, and whispered, "You think you're better than me? I'll burn your life down. You'll wish you were never born into this family." The recorder caught every word. I didn't even flinch. I just smiled, thanked her for the delivery, and shut the door. Later that night, listening back to the file, I felt this dark satisfaction coil in my chest. For once, I had her real self, on tape. No crocodile tears, no wine glass theatrics, just raw, ugly Alyssa. The timing was perfect too. Mom had planned a little family brunch the next weekend. She guilt-tripped me into coming, swearing it was just to clear the air. Which, in our family, meant Alyssa had already written the script and Mom was directing the play. But this time, I had the script in my hands, and I was going to flip the stage lights on her. The brunch was at Mom's house. Of course it was. Neutral ground, she called it. Neutral, my ass. Alyssa had already parked her SUV out front, perched like a queen guarding her castle. Mark trailed behind her like a shadow, head down. Inside, the table was set like some Pinterest spread. Fruit platters, mimosas, fresh flowers, all Alyssa's touch. I could smell her perfume clinging to the napkins. She was already in performance mode, laughing too loud, telling Mom's neighbor about her charity work. The moment I sat down, the mood shifted. Alyssa tilted her glass toward me. Well, Daniel decided to join us. Brave. Mom sighed, tired and theatrical. Please, both of you, let's just keep the peace. I didn't say much, just let her talk. She ranted about how I'd abandoned Mark, how I was cold, heartless. Mark stared at his plate like it was going to save him. Every time he opened his mouth, Alyssa's nails tapped against his armrest, shutting him up. It went on like that for nearly an hour. My jaw was clenched so hard my teeth ached. Finally, Alyssa leaned across the table, eyes locked on me, and said, "Some people just aren't cut out for family. They're better off alone. Isn't that right, Daniel?" That was my cue. I pulled out my phone, hit play, and set it in the middle of the table. Her voice filled the room. Venomous, unmistakable. Mark's weak, pathetic. Should have left him years ago if it weren't for the money. Mark's fork clattered onto the plate. His face went white. Then came the part about Mom. Every queen needs a loyal servant. Mom's eyes went wide, her hand trembling around her mimosa. And finally, the whisper, low and sharp, "I'll burn your life down. You'll wish you were never born into this family." The silence afterward was deafening. Alyssa's face went from smug to pale to fire red in seconds. She lunged across the table, knocking over the fruit platter, grabbing for my phone. I yanked it back just as she sent a mimosa glass crashing to the floor, orange liquid spreading like a wound across Mom's perfect rug. "You set me up!" she shrieked, voice breaking. "He's lying! He doctored it!" But Mark's eyes were on her now. Not me. Not Mom. Her. "Did you mean it?" he asked, voice shaking. Alyssa froze, and in that hesitation, in that split second where she didn't deny it, everything cracked. Mom whispered, "Oh my God." and Alyssa exploded. Update 2. So, remember how some of you told me Alyssa would not take the recording well? Yeah, you weren't exaggerating. The brunch went nuclear. After I played that recording, the mask slipped clean off her face. She went from fake tears to full banshee in under 30 seconds. Screaming, throwing things. At one point, she ripped a picture frame off Mom's wall and hurled it across the room. Shards everywhere. Mom was shaking in the corner. Mark was just gone. Like his body was there, but his soul had left the building. And Alyssa? She turned on me, screeching about how I'd ruined her marriage, how I'd orchestrated everything. She actually tried to grab my phone out of my hand again, but this time Mark stood up. That's when I knew something snapped in him. He physically pulled her back and said, "Enough." First time I've heard him raise his voice to her in years. She looked at him like he'd just stabbed her in the back. Then she stormed out, slamming the door so hard it cracked the frame. SUV tires squealed all the way down the street. Here's where it gets worse. 20 minutes later, while we're still cleaning broken glass, my phone starts blowing up. Alyssa had already gone to Facebook. Full public meltdown. Long post about how I'm a toxic manipulator, how I've always been jealous of her and Mark's marriage, and how I edited recordings to destroy a family. And guess what? People ate it up. Her friends, neighbors, even a couple of distant relatives, all chiming in with, "Stay strong, Queen," and cut out the haters. She even posted a crying selfie in her car. You can't make this up. But then the DMs started rolling in. A few of Mark's co-workers, even one of Alyssa's so-called friends, messaged me privately saying, "We believe you. She's done this before." One woman actually said Alyssa tried to blacklist her from a mom's group because she didn't compliment her new haircut enough. So yeah, Alyssa's spinning her web online, but the cracks are showing. Mark hasn't called me yet, but Mom texted an hour ago. "She's dangerous. Be careful." That's the first time I've ever heard Mom take my side against her. I don't know what Alyssa's next move is, but knowing her, it won't just be words. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm bracing for impact. 2 nights after the brunch, I woke up to the sound of glass shattering. I shot up, heart pounding, grabbed the baseball bat I keep by my bed, and bolted to the front window. My truck's windshield was spiderwebbed, shards glittering under the streetlight. And standing there, in her pajama pants and a hoodie, was Alyssa, rock still in her hand. She didn't even run. She just stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild, like she wanted me to come out so she could finish the job face to face. I yanked open the door. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice cracked, part sob, part snarl. "You ruined my life. You think you can make me the villain? I'll make sure you have nothing." Before I could respond, headlights swung into the driveway. It was Mark's car. He jumped out, sprinted across the lawn, and grabbed her by the arm. "Alyssa, stop." She jerked away, nearly dropping the rock on his foot. "Don't you touch me. He's the problem, not me." Mark's voice broke. "You smashed his truck." "Because he's trying to destroy us," she screamed, eyes rolling like she couldn't even hear herself. "He wants to tear this family apart." I could barely breathe. My truck, my peace, my sanity, she'd gone after all of it. Mark turned to me then, and for the first time in months, he looked me in the eye. "I'm sorry." His voice was low but heavy. "I should have stopped this sooner." Alyssa lost it at that. She dropped the rock and lunged at him, clawing at his hoodie. "You're supposed to defend me. Not him! Not him!" That was the moment the cops pulled up. A neighbor must have called. Flashing red and blue lit the whole street. Alyssa immediately switched gears, collapsing onto the grass, fake sobbing, clutching her arm like she was the victim. "He attacked me," she wailed, pointing at Mark. "He tried to hurt me." The officers looked between us, then at the truck's busted windshield, then at Alyssa's untouched arm. Her performance wasn't landing the way she thought it would. They separated us, took statements. By the end, Alyssa was the one being loaded into the back of the squad car for property damage and disturbing the peace. Mark stood on the curb, pale and shaking, watching his wife scream his name as they drove her away. And me? I just stared at the shards of glass on the pavement, knowing this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because Alyssa doesn't lose quietly. She'd be back. Alyssa spent the night in county. Property damage and disorderly conduct don't exactly land you in prison, but a mugshot? That sticks. By morning, her Facebook warrior friends were quiet. No more "stay strong queen" comments. Just silence. The woman who lived for her image had her perfect mask cracked wide open. Mark showed up at my place the next day. He looked wrecked. Dark circles, hoodie rumpled, hands shaking. He sat on my porch steps for a long time before speaking. "She called me from jail," he said finally. "Screamed that it was my fault, said I betrayed her." I waited. He rubbed his face like he was trying to scrub off the last decade. "She's not getting better. She's never going to stop." It was the first time I'd heard him admit it. And then he broke down. Full-on sobbing into his hands, shoulders shaking like he was carrying every year of silence, every fight, every time he let her run the show. He wasn't my big brother in that moment. He was just a man who'd been hollowed out. "Divorce her," I said. The words came out harder than I meant, but I didn't take them back. He nodded. Just once. And for the first time, I believed he meant it. Mom came over later, too. She didn't say much, just sat at my kitchen table, eyes red, whispering apologies that felt 20 years overdue. I didn't let her off the hook, but I also didn't slam the door in her face this time. Progress, I guess. A week passed. Papers were filed. Mark moved in with Mom temporarily. By his choice, not hers. Alyssa bombarded him with texts, voicemails, even showed up at his job once, screaming in the parking lot until security dragged her out. But the tide had shifted. People weren't buying her act anymore. Not after the recording. Not after the mugshot. And me? I finally breathed. For the first time in months, I wasn't checking my locks twice or jumping at every late-night noise. My truck's still in the shop, my front porch still has a crack from her last meltdown, but the quiet feels clean. I keep thinking back to the night I told Mom no. How much guilt I carried for saying it. How much doubt. But standing here now, watching Alyssa unravel, I realized that no was the first domino. The one that finally knocked her whole facade down. I didn't save my brother. He had to save himself. All I did was refuse to burn with him. And sometimes, that's enough.